Well, that's enough of a break for now. Let's get back on the move. We've got an obscene amount of the game to go through, and I doubt that fast-forwarding that I've been pulling here is gonna make the game feel all that much shorter overall. Still, every little bit that I can justify to myself helps, and it's very much easy to justify when we're running through the same rooms as we did before and fighting the exact same damn enemies. It's stuff like this that makes map design that's essentially one big hallway with larger spaces here and there feel a bit more tolerable. Sure, the terrain in this sort of exploration game is more interesting, which prompts us to get more upgrades to become ever more mobile, but still, there is an obscene amount of backtracking, especially here in Metroid Prime 2. Once more through a portal. I'm pretty sure one of the reasons I took a break from this game is because I could have sworn that the portals were more meaningful than they actually are, and that Dark Aether was something actually more oppressive. Instead, it's just annoying. Especially now that we've got a suit that slows down the pace we get damaged by the air. Once we become completely immune to it, then that world will become even more meaningless when it's supposed to be a centerpiece for this game. Anyway, seems the speed booster isn't what we need to get up from here. Yes, I'm once again pulling back as we try to figure out what we're actually supposed to be doing right now. I'm kind of hoping that wandering around lasts long enough that I fast forward enough to turn 40 minutes into about 20. But I kind of doubt that, mostly because I wouldn't have bothered saving if things were that uneventful for the entirety of the clip. Or at least I don't think I would. I suppose grabbing that missile expansion would have been worth a save at any rate, even if it didn't feel worth slowing the footage down for. Yeah, still no means to get through that purple door there. And since I can't see any obvious way forward from here, we're gonna get on the elevator for now. Huh. Why didn't I go through that door before? Is it just the fact that I didn't take the elevator last time I was here? Yeah, definitely a new area. And here's a non-possessed version of the suicidal gas bag creature. I still find it ridiculous that the Ing bothered to possess something like this. And it's even more strange that we ran into the palette swap before we ran into the actual original form of the thing on this planet. No clue if that's my fault or the game designers. Well, getting on this platform when it moved right into that poison mist was certainly my fault. Again, you'd think that I'd be able to avoid various environmental hazards better, considering how many Metroid games we've done so far on this channel. But there are just some things that will always seem to be an issue for me, regardless of experience. Right. Of course we're gonna have to be fighting some decently capable underwater enemies before we even get the gravity suit. At least it's a relatively unique enemy that we haven't run into just yet. Did we run into anything like this in Metroid Prime 1? Well, we certainly haven't for this game. It's not anything especially creative. Just a bullfight style fight underwater when we aren't particularly mobile, but hey, I'll take what I can get. I'd ask what the interference is, but I suppose it doesn't matter. Without the gravity suit or just draining the water here, I doubt we'll be able to use that bomb switch. My mistake. No bombs required, despite the fact that those things are shaped just like bomb triggers. Of course, now that we've pulled the thing up, how are we supposed to get back over there? That was our bridge. that was a pretty nice kill. Hell, that was one of the goriest kills we've seen in the 3D Metroid games. Granted, it's not the most brutal death I've ever seen, but I was not expecting it here. And if this thing was a monster back in the first Metroid Prime, I am even more embarrassed for not remembering it, because... well. Apparently there's nothing really to see here at the bottom of the room. Wasn't really expecting anything, but it was worth checking. Besides, it's not like the mini-map in this game tells us if anything is in the room to grab. As a side note, I have absolutely no clue why the camera acted like that there. It's not a big thing, but it was still kind of jarring. Okay, probably shouldn't have just jumped onto the platform before checking around for nearby enemies. Okay, that mistake was a little beneficial since we grabbed a missile expansion, even if we have no way to open the door behind it right now. Still, I definitely feel like an idiot there. Let's get back up. So I have to drop down in order to get back up. Well, I suppose that's a bit funny. Destroying these things definitely won't keep them from just showing up while we're still in the damn room, but at least it might give us an opening to check out the doors higher up. Or I could apparently choose to leave and not bother with that room for a while. Not that I've got all that many plans other than that room at the moment. As usual for this series, I'm wandering around and hoping we eventually find a way forward. Ah well, me stumbling around is an excuse for me to start fast-forwarding again. Who knows? I might be able to avoid having to cut this bit of raw footage at an awkward moment in order to keep it under half an hour long. Bloody hell. Why is it that the absolute first clip I had to work with after killing off the speed boost boss and taking a break had to be 40 minutes long? Why couldn't the navigation at least go by more smoothly after I just had to deal with one of the more infamously bullshit bosses of the game? A boss so cheap that I'm not 100% certain I managed to get through that fight clean, and I'm the one who recorded the footage and started working on the commentary for it. All I can think about with that boss are the numerous failures I've had through all the years, and the other boss I can think of with that sheer amount of frustration in this game is the Spider Ball boss. After that point in the game, I just stopped feeling any form of frustration and just cheat my ass off. Granted, that was not really an option I had back when I still had a physical GameCube instead of emulating one, but still, that's how I've completed the game over the years. Okay, so there's no way for us to reach the red door from down here as far as I can tell. Apparently we need to go all the way to where the black door's path starts. Right. Definitely not going to be easy to find a new path to go on that doesn't involve us jumping around those exploding gas bags from the room I abandoned just as I started fast-forwarding. Maybe I shouldn't have left it. Again, not too sure if it's my fault or the game designer's fault that I essentially gave up on that bit too early or something. Well, I can certainly still pitch that this recurring enemy is a pain in the ass to kill, and it doesn't even have the excuse of being possessed by an Ing. Are we going to run into an Ing-possessed variant of this thing? Because if said creature is not an explicit boss, then I call supreme bullshit considering its durability. Right. Apparently my random wanderings are taking me back to the main temple grounds. It isn't possible for me to tell at this point if I'm just wasting my time or if there are indeed some things worth grabbing back here that will help as we try to gain more keys for the next region. Have I mentioned how absolutely obscene it is that the game made such a painful bit of padding the standard way for us to make progress for each of these various temples we go to? Granted, the first Metroid Prime had us have to hunt down a series of keys to enter the asteroid crater that held the final boss area, and that was a very frustrating number of keys to have to grab. But this is not an improvement. Having to grab 3 keys at a time numerous times, instead of having to get around 12 for a single gulp, is not an improvement in my books. Right, should not have bothered slowing things down for a moment there. There is nothing we can do in this direction for now. Again, there's a very familiar feeling in this series, but that doesn't mean I enjoy that aspect. Just like I don't like how few healing items we've been getting in this game considering the sheer amount of damage we keep taking. Still, there are things I'm looking forward to getting to in this game, regardless of how frustrating it is overall. I'm also planning on LPing the sequel to this game, and while there isn't all that much that this game brings to the table outside of Dark Samus that will play a role in the story of the third Metroid Prime, at least nothing that didn't also play a role in the first Metroid Prime, it's still a generally good idea to do these sorts of things in order. I'm already planning to take our next break in this game after we take on the other especially frustrating boss, the Spider Ball boss. But after that, I'm going to force myself to finish the game off without any more breaks. Metroid Prime 2 might be a monster in more ways than one, but I certainly managed to push myself through for the recording. And I'm extremely sure that dealing with this bullshit with a controller in my hands was a lot more stressful than when I'm just looking at the footage long after the fact and saying what comes to mind. I just need to take breaks because the residual aggravation of trying to beat this clean as a kid, plus the frustrations when I was recording it, are coming back to me as I'm looking at the footage, and it is not a pleasant cocktail. This form of ing certainly is a lot more intimidating to deal with if we don't use the light beam at just the right time. Unfortunately for these bastards, they had to be introduced a good deal after we'd already gained the light beam. Well, I suppose that hint is supposed to be some solid directions for us. Assuming we can actually get into that elevator, we might even be able to get to it within this clip, though I could be misreading the map a bit. I might need to go in a different direction. Not sure what's more annoying to gain, more ammo for the 2 beams that probably shouldn't even have ammo in the first place, or just health items in general. Those are just way too rare. I am just pretty sure that Nintendo didn't do anywhere near as much work on playtesting this game as they normally do. Possibly because they were just completely shocked at how much praise the first Metroid Prime got. Before Metroid Prime, sure, the franchise was considered a Nintendo staple, but the only game that was an explicit hit at that point was Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo. The handheld releases just never seemed to take off, and they weren't really sure how to pull this sort of format off in a 3D thing, the same way they figured out how to pull off Mario in a hurry. So they just completely skipped over the N64 generation for this series. It wasn't especially fresh on anyone's minds at the time when it came out, and the experiment to let a classic series grow was released on the same generation as very solid classics like Resident Evil 4, the original Halo, Combat Evolved, and Final Fantasy X. That is some pretty damn fierce competition, though I suppose that since none of those are really in Metroid's genre, that kinda must have helped. Hell, I've tried to go through Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and I just couldn't get into it like I did for any of the Metroid games we've done so far, aside from this one. One day, I might record and do an LP of the Castlevania series, but the only thing about it so far that's really drawn me in is the animated series. Whereas Metroid drew me in for several 2D games, and I'm most definitely looking forward to when Metroid Prime 4 finally happens and when I finally get to commenting on Metroid Prime 3. Anyway, again, I really wish that the Ing felt like a more interesting foe, considering they're supposed to be a major reason why this planet is dying. I did not have as much of an issue in earlier games with the pirates being pretty reactive, or with the Metroids just waiting for us to hunt them down one or two at a time. But then, the pirates were assumedly working on other things at the time, and while they would have loved to kill Samus, she wasn't the priority for them. And the Metroids were going through what counts as their normal hunting and traveling habits on their own world, and while the Queen reacted to the deaths of her brood, it wasn't like the Metroids were ever implied to have that tactical ability to try to coordinate and just take Samus out before she took them out. But the Ing are explicitly in a war, explicitly intelligent, and we have the device that can end their world altogether inside of our suit right now that we stole from them. And to make matters just that little bit worse, we've already restored some of the energy to regular Aether, which means Dark Aether is probably somehow becoming more unstable. I'm sorry, but the Ing just don't feel like they're anywhere near proactive enough, considering the circumstances. I'm starting to get Kai Leng flashbacks from Mass Effect 3. I've probably said this before, but my issue with the story of this game might have something to do with the fact that I've gone through quite a few games in war settings. Granted, Metroid has always gone for a horror vibe, and war can be horrifying, but that's a distinctly different style of horror than what Metroid games typically go for. And great, now I'm trying to come up with a way to properly describe what my problem with this is. I don't think I'm going to have enough time before we slow the footage down again to really get into it. So I suppose I'll just have to quickly summarize by talking about Resident Evil 5, a game I plan to eventually get to. RE5 was partially inspired by Black Hawk Down, a war movie where the heroes are completely cut off from help and under constant attack. Sure, scary circumstances, but when they threw that into the Resident Evil formula, people felt that it'd gotten too actiony, that they had gone too far away from the horror roots, and it wasn't even trying to be campy about it to make up for the shift in genre. This game, lore-wise, is trying to be a war story, but in terms of level design and enemy placements, it just can't pull that off. So in some ways, I think I would argue that Resident Evil 5 is probably superior to Metroid Prime 2, at least in terms of lore. Speaking of lore, time to start reading. It was ridiculous enough with the Chozo back on Talon 4, but come on! A space civilization like this should have thought to have some measure of anti-asteroid defense, unless they wanted to die out like the dinosaurs. No sign at all? Not even a crater? And I suppose that confirms that at the end of the game, we are gonna be fighting in Dark Aether as we go to that asteroid crater for the finale. At least if this game wants to follow the first Metroid Prime with that particular story and level design beat. Well, didn't mean to fall back down here, so let's get back to that hole and roll through the proper way to find what's new. I'd ask why the Ing aren't doing more to aggressively take over absolutely every bit of life in light ether, especially since they apparently don't care if they possess something that's main method of attack is blowing up and dying. But again, the Ing are just annoyingly unimpressive to the point that you could probably cut them from the game, and you wouldn't really be missing much of anything, at least in terms of lore. Wait, so Moss's mother was named the Moss? I know it's a fictional species that we're never gonna run into in any of the other games in this franchise, but still, I would have thought they would have had a better naming scheme than this. I somehow doubt that a child Luminoth is gonna look any different from an adult if we turn off the scanner. Ah well, children being put on the front lines should be a solid way to show that war is not going well for a particular faction. If not for the fact that anime does it all the damn time. But then we've also had a number of other signs that the Luminoth would have been screwed if we hadn't shown up anyway. As a side note, the name X-Car is kind of, tempting me to get back to LPing some Star Wars games, possibly because the Old Republic games, there are some references to a Sith Lord called Exar Kun. I'm going to have to assume that means that a grandparent and grandchild made their last stand here. Part of me wants to ask why the Luminoth only put 2 people here, but then we've seen remarkably few bodies from the Luminoth considering they're fighting a war where defeat means the extinction of their entire people. I know fiction in general has a hard time pulling off any battles at the sort of scale you would expect from either World War I or World War II, much less a planetary scale war, but still, it's just another sign that the people who made this game's backstory shouldn't have explicitly said there's a war going on. I know, I'm probably just being too harsh of a critic because I don't like other aspects of this game. As a side note, if we find a Luminoth statue honoring some fallen hero by the name of QAnon, I'm going to start rooting for the Ing! Because, well, I just felt worth saying that to help kill some more time. Right, nothing to do for now but start spinning. I assume when the crown looks brighter that we're doing something right. Speaking of doing something right, I've definitely managed to keep this clip under half an hour long without having to split the footage, so yay me! I know, probably not all that exciting that I've been fast-forwarding so much in this first clip after a break, but still, it felt worth mentioning. I'm sure that means we're making progress in solving this. Now, if only I could feel like I give a damn about getting this set of wheels into the right position outside of getting the upgrade held in the energy field there. Though it probably says something that I'm very glad we don't have to fight a boss instead of this bloody puzzle. Good God, even after my break, I'm still reeling from our clash with the Speed Boost boss. I could have sworn that was an energy field, not a glass window. Yes, we've already established that's what this structure does since we just saw it do that. Any other obvious observations? Seeker launcher, eh? I'm sure they'll let us through all the purple doors. I suppose that's something. Yeah, shooting multiple missiles in a single go. That is certainly gonna drain ammo. Well, there aren't any doors in front of us that need multiple missiles to open. At least none that I can see. And of course, there's no way to that portal right now, so I'm gonna have to assume we're going to have to do some more backtracking at some point. Ah, there's our first multi-missile door. So, shooting this particular weapon effectively spends 6 shots, since we need to waste 1 just to get the charge going. Really getting the sense that ammo means a lot more in this game than any other Metroid we've gone through. And considering none of the other Metroid titles that we've gone through, even the ones made after this game, have anywhere near this many things that require ammo, I'm pretty sure they figured out that this was a bad idea. Still, credit where it's due, they did everything they could to make this adventure feel reasonably distinct from the first Metroid Prime, even if both games were released for the same console generation and had the same control scheme. The first game feels better in pretty much every way, but that's the price you sometimes pay when you do a bit of a rush job while trying to give said rush job an identity of its own. Again, I don't think they're using the word testament right there. Right, of course this one died just after getting one of those damn keys. The padding around here is just unrelenting, and it's been spread out in such a way that this game already feels longer than the first Metroid Prime. I know, probably an illusion considering how many parts in we are, but still something worth groaning about. Anyway, that should about do it for this clip. Hope it was fun for what it was worth as I came back here.